Ambassador Mark Regev. He is senior advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli ambassador to the UK. Mr. Ambassador, let's pick up where we left off with Trey's reporting a moment ago. We hear that your side has now received the list of hostages to be released tomorrow. Can you offer us any comment on the list? I don't know if you've had a chance to see it before you came on the air. Do you have any reaction?
I haven't seen it yet, but I have to tell you, when we received the list yesterday, we kept it private. We didn't tell anyone except for the families involved, and we asked them to keep it a secret. And we'll probably do the same now. These lists are coming from the Hamas side. We don't put them together. The agreement, though, that the Americans helped us negotiate, and we thank the administration for its help, the agreement specifies that over a 4-day period, we're going to receive 50 hostages, and the focus is on children and women. And that's all I can say. We have to look at the list we received today and make sure that Hamas is, in fact, keeping its part of the arrangement, and the list does include women and children.
Mr. Ambassador, did anything about the process that unfolded today take you by surprise or disappoint your side here?
Well, because we have very low expectations of Hamas, the mere fact that it worked today and we did get 13 Israelis out, that is a pleasant surprise. But there's something very important that has to be said here. Hamas released today 6 women over the age of 70, elderly women, and also at the same time it released children, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old. Now, Hamas, in all its public statements, said their horrendous, horrific attacks of October 7th were against military targets. Their words, not mine. And yet, they're releasing today elderly women and children under the age of 10, one as young as 2 years old. What does that say about Hamas's lie that their attack on October 7th was against military targets? And I think there's a lesson here for the media and for everybody. You can't take at face value anything Hamas says. They still, despite the releases today, deny that they attacked and murdered and kidnapped innocent civilians on October 7th.
Why is it, sir, in your estimation, that Hamas decided to prioritize the release of elderly women and young children, certainly not for humanitarian reasons as they have claimed? What's your assessment there of the strategic reasons behind the decision?
Well, first of all, you're 100% correct. Hamas has not become a moral organization. It's not become a humanitarian organization. They're not new Boy Scouts. Yes, they are a vicious, brutal, fanatical terrorist organization. And we saw the sort of violence that they perpetrated on October 7th, when they invaded my country and they burnt babies alive, and they massacred entire families, and they lined up the young people at the open-air music concert and they just machine-gunned them. Terrible things, beheadings, rapes, terrible, terrible crimes against humanity. So they haven't changed who they are. They are despicable, and they are really enemies of all humanity. But if they have decided to cooperate in the release of hostages, it's because of the pressure they're under. And who is applying that pressure? The brave young men and women of the Israeli Defense Forces, our soldiers, who have been delivering blow after blow. They are taking apart Hamas's military machine. They're eliminating Hamas's command structure. And Hamas is desperate for a timeout. They want to see an end to the blows that the Israeli military is inflicting on them. And they know, because we've said it publicly over the last month, we will only agree to this sort of humanitarian pause if they release hostages. So we've forced them to release the hostages. That's a good thing.
Mr. Ambassador, 2 surprise developments, or at least a surprise for the American public, seemingly for the American government as well. That is that no Americans were released. We had initially been under the impression that 3 would be released potentially today. Also, the release of these additional hostages, 12 Thai nationals as well as 1 Filipino included in that 12 number. Any sense of what went on with either of those developments? Do you have any sense of why that occurred? Was your side taken by surprise by that?
We weren't taken by surprise. We know that the ties were speaking directly to the Iranians. And as you know, Iran is the primary funder of Hamas. Over 93% of Hamas's military budget comes from Tehran, from the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's part of their axis of terror, which includes Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen. That's the axis they belong to, and it's clear that if Iran asks Hamas to do something, they will do it. On the question about the Americans, I'm hopeful that we'll still see that young American girl freed. She fits into all the categories. She's young. She needs to be prioritized, and I hope that she gets out very, very soon.
The President Biden said a few moments ago that he suspects October 7th happened when it did because he was getting very close, the U.S. was getting very close to a peace bridge with Saudi Arabia. Do you share that assessment?
We do indeed. The President is right. We have no doubt that one of the reasons that Hamas launched its attack on October 7th was its fear that Israel and Saudi Arabia were about to normalize relations and establish peaceful ties between the two countries. And while the whole world, yes, in America, in Canada, in Europe, everyone supports that sort of peace breakthrough in the Middle East, for Hamas, for Iran, for Hezbollah, for the axis of terror, that sort of peace breakthrough is an existential threat. Because while we all want to see peace and progress and prosperity and cooperation, they, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, they want to see a new dark age. They want to see the Middle East turn inward into this era of fanaticism, of extremism, of taking us back to a dark period in history. No, we have to defeat them. We have to unite with the moderate and pragmatic Arab countries. We have to form a pro-Western, pro-peace, pro-cooperation alliance. That's what we stand for, and we have to defeat Hamas.
I need to ask you before I let you go, wondering if you have any concerns that as Hamas releases hostages, those people who remain in captivity potentially become more valuable hostages to the terror organization.
So you're right in your question yet again, because if we celebrated today the release of 13, and the expectation is over the next 3 days we'll see another 37 hostages released, and that is the deal. They have to release 50 in the first 4 days. There are still over 100 left behind. So it's bittersweet. While we're happy for the families of those who've seen their loved ones return, we're with the families of those who've still got loved ones stuck in Gaza, prisoners of these terrible Hamas terrorists. And let me say here, we will not rest. We will not rest until every last hostage is released. It's an integral part of our military operation, the release of the hostages, and we will continue to apply military pressure on Hamas. All the hostages will come home.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for taking time with us on this very important day. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.